the greatest thing is to ask questions of those people who have already been through it. I remember my dad saying at one point in time, you know, experience is the greatest educator. But the other side of that is other people's experience is also a great educator, because we can talk about it and we can ask about it and we can learn from them without having to go through the pain. So in order to be able to understand that, we need to be able to know what we're facing. And ask about yourselves. What are the positives, what are the negatives, and most importantly, what are the unknowns? The unknowns are equally as important. Okay? Now, create your change strategy. This particular piece is important. This is the proactive piece I talked about. A lot of people think, and you might see this word in here, a lot of people think that change just happens, or we adapt to change, and lo and behold, there it is. Presto, we wake up on a Wednesday morning, and we've managed through or navigated that change. It is not going to occur. As a matter of fact, nothing occurs by accident. It happens on purpose. And the more purposeful someone is about approaching something like this, the sooner they get through, and more importantly, they know how they get through. There's nothing worse than someone managing through a change, not knowing how to do it, and then suddenly the next day they're faced with. And remember, it's like forgetting a recipe. You make something, it's fantastic. Someone says to you, okay, what did you do? Don't know. Can you repeat it? Don't think so. So in this situation, we need to have a strategy that we're going to be paying attention to. What change you're facing, control versus time, understanding your personality, okay, what stage are you in currently, and then assess the positive and negative. Finally, figure out what coping strategies you can bring. And if in fact they're not just the coping strategies you can bring, what others can people share with you, teach you, lend you, how can you borrow from other people? Okay? Now, let's get to that self-care piece for a second. I'm watching the clock, I've got you for a whopping 11 minutes left. Okay, and this particular piece is important. Change impacts us, and I'm speaking with healthcare professionals. So some of you will be sitting there saying, that guy doesn't have a clue what he's talking about. You're probably right. But I do believe that change impacts us physically. Would everyone agree with that? It certainly impacts us emotionally. And if it impacts us physically and it impacts us emotionally, it doesn't make sense that it also changes the way we behave. So if it affects us on all those levels, what do we need to do? We need to care for ourselves. And by the way, just if you will, we need to have a coping strategy not just for those changes that are imposed upon us that might be viewed as negative. You need to have a coping strategy for those changes, in fact, that you voluntarily enter into that might be viewed as positive. Otherwise, you're going to show up at someone else's doorstep looking for dinner in the parking lot, like I did, and that's not a good thing. You have to have a strategy. Okay, proper significant exercise. Now, there's something I was going to show you in a second. It is on your slides. It's pretty detailed, but for the most part, there's an awful lot said right now about the positive benefits of exercise. And we talk about serotonin levels, we talk about all of those things. We talk about the capacity to be able to get rid of the endorphins, the opiates, and the adrenaline in our system so we're less agitated. We know about that. We know about drinking lots and lots of water. But one of the interesting things that they're talking about now in terms of coping with stress from change, which in fact can oftentimes lead to depression, is that the more we do it, the more we oxygenate our brain. In fact, the more we're producing glucose, and in fact what that does is it helps us with those brand new brain cells that in fact being occurred to adhese. It's fantastic. In fact, they're saying that of all of the things right now out there that we can cope with, that we can manage, that are in our hands, that we can do in order to combat, we'll just say depression or anxiety, exercise is one of them. I teach critical incident stress management teams all over the world. We're about to take on a contract with the United Nations very soon. And one of the things that you'll hear me talk about with them is you need to be a self-care fanatic. Now, you don't need to be great at everything. You just need to be able to make sure you're eating well. Exercise is absolutely key. Sleeping as well as you possibly can. Okay? And any of that. Otherwise, what happens is we just run down our resources. So proper nutrition, making time for ourselves, getting lots of sleep, all of these things that are on there. There's one on there that you may not pay much attention to. Second from the bottom. Praise yourself. I've heard so many people, as a matter of fact, I think I can hear the echo from our family table back home where it was said, self-praise is no recommendation. Anyone ever heard that? Yeah. Not true. Best recommendation. Self-praise is the best recommendation. You can be in a silent room and you have done something absolutely fantastic, and if no one else recognizes it, who will? The capacity to be able to say to yourself, not in an arrogant way, but in a very positive, realistic way, you did great. Good job. Is important. I'll come home sometimes to my wife, how was your day? Great. I think it was a good therapist today. Really, what makes you say that? And I'll say that. Now, she knows me well enough that that's not arrogance, that's just feeling good. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about this, because years ago I had an opportunity to be able to meet with the Canadian hockey team. And they were playing the Canada-Russia series, and I was a student at McGill University running a sports camp. And the athletes came in order to speak with the young students, the kids in the community. Mark Messier and Kevin Lowe were there, and Wayne Gretzky was not there at the time. What happened is typical. The kids said, so what's it like to play with Wayne Gretzky? And they said, oh God, everyone asks that question. And they went into the story, but when Wayne Gretzky first came to the Oilers and they were playing together and such, I don't know who it was who was saying it. It might have been Messier saying this. And when Gretzky came, obviously he came with quite a history, and people were paying attention to what this kid was doing. And he approached these guys and he said, when I've got the puck, make sure you keep your stick on the ice, because when I pass it to you, I'll hit your blade. And I was thinking, what an arrogant guy. That's amazing. I can't believe that kid said that. And they walked away from it, and finally, I remember Messier saying, well, yeah, maybe he's right. Maybe we should do that. And they did. And he did. Was it arrogance or was it confidence? It was confidence. It was a tendency. He knew what he was capable of doing. I just asked you, left-handed or right-handed? And you said, right-handed. All right, is that arrogance or confidence? No, you're just right-handed. And if you've done something well, you need to recognize it. Otherwise, it gets missed. It's the recipe that gets missed. Okay? So, we talked about that latest research. I'm going to skip past that, and then the influence of alcohol. Go ahead. That's lunch. Exercise. Okay. And is that a great way to be greeted back in America? That's terrible. Okay, here's something. Let's take a look at this. One, we took a look at the 4 different types of change. How it is that our personalities, in fact, when we invest our personality into that change, how in fact it changes the outcome. And once again, our personality is malleable, it's flexible, but it's important to know that it is influenced. The outcome is influenced by our personality. Those 3 stages are important. For me, it's that, obviously I told you that neutral zone is the toughest one for me. But saying goodbye to the end and embracing the beginning, and somewhere in between finding the bridge between. Okay? Discussing the strategies of managing change, we did that, and to look at change from a positive perspective. Once again, it's attitudinal. You'll find those people who, for the most part, when they walk in the room, they darken the room. Other people, when they walk in the room, they brighten the room. I will always remember that story of 2 kids going into separate rooms, and one room is filled with toys, and the other room is filled with horse manure. And the child in there looking for toys is scrambling around, he's crying, and he's upset because there's a particular toy he can't seem to find, but they're beautiful brand new toys everywhere. And you go into the other room, and there's this kid throwing horse manure everywhere, and he's having a great time, laughing and smiling. What are you so happy about? He said, well, all this horse manure around here, there's got to be a pony in here somewhere. And so that sense, that attitude is absolutely key. It will be the salvation that gets people through. So, before we finish off, consider one moment our lives without change. So take a look at this. This last photo I put up, and I'll go back to that just for 1 second, because I know I've got still 3 walking minutes with you. We had the honor and privilege of arranging the first National Truth and Reconciliation process between the First Nations people of our country who had survived residential schools experience, we'll call it. and the government. So we had about 15,000 people who came to Winnipeg. And there was an opportunity for those survivors to be able to meet with our staff. We had over 400 people there working with them. Saw 4,000 people who wanted to be able to tell what their experience in a matter of 4 days. Probably one of the most amazing experiences of my life. But one of my buddies actually took this photo. And this was a young white non-native girl and a native girl at that event. And that was pretty amazing to see that, because it encapsulated for us exactly how things had changed. Change is going to happen either way, whether we want it or not. And my suggestion is, let's embrace it. Let's get involved in it. Get safe through it. So there's one final thing we're going to take a look at. It could require change even in driving habits. It's a fun way to be able to finish on. Okay? Let's see if this has sound. It does. Take a look at the clock in the very bottom corner. Now look at the clock. I guess that's how it's done. Well, as we move forward, let's embrace the change. But listen, thank you so much. There's information down here. I'd love you to take at least the business card. I appreciate you letting me come in and see you.